your school's word-of-mouth marketing plan, which I think is one of the most important marketing topics for a school leadership team to consider. And I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts about this during our webinar today. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction for who I am, was at the SSATB annual meeting back in September and presented a variation of this presentation I'm giving today to the group that was there and enjoyed that, and also did another webinar earlier this year on retention. But it's great to be able to talk about word of mouth. And I was just telling Karen about my background, and it's been in education my entire life. I spent 12 years at Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, heading up enrollment management, so marketing, development, admissions, retention, and financial aid were all part of my responsibility. And then found my way to Florida here, became head of school of Northside Christian, was in that role for a few years before making a transition to work with a marketing company here in St. Pete, Charing Company, to actually help schools with their branding and marketing campaigns. Also a graduate of Michigan State University, so I'm a Spartan, and appreciated my education for my PhD program there. It's my family, my wife Janine, my two boys Caleb and Benjamin. And Caleb is in the glasses, and he's in 8th grade. Benjamin is wearing the Pittsburgh Steelers shirt, my favorite team, and his as well, except they didn't do too well on Sunday. And he's in 7th grade. And we're in a shot here right along the Intercoastal Waterway, which is less than a mile from where we live. We were having dinner for my oldest son's birthday. And so it's one of the advantages of living in Florida, especially this time of year, although a lot of the country has been warm from what I hear. And I have a blog on my website. You can find that at enrollmentcatalyst.com. You can find that off the homepage, or you can type in the / and then blog. And I try to write a weekly post on a variety of topics. Actually, I have written quite a bit on word-of-mouth marketing, so you might be interested in diving into some of the topics that I've written about on my website and my blog, and you can actually subscribe to that if that's something you're interested in doing. And I work with schools all across the United States and Canada, actually helping them with their enrollment and marketing effort, providing an assessment and direction for their marketing plan, and helping coach them along the way to implement the strategies that are going to improve their enrollment and marketing effort at their school. But we want to focus in today about word of mouth. And so I have a memory for you all to kind of think about. Think about back to around the 80s, the early 80s. There was a young model appearing on your TV screen, and she begins by saying, "I told 2 friends about Fabergé organic shampoo with pure wheat germ oil and honey." And then she concludes, "You'll tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and so on and so on," and you see the screen multiplying. I believe that was Heather Locklear, and they had it right. It was about word of mouth, even with their commercial focusing in on selling shampoo. And we think about it today, even in our own buying decisions. Word of mouth is so powerful. Think about any trip that you may have taken lately or you're going to be taking. You know, you look online, you read the reviews of the hotels that people stayed in or the restaurants that they went to. You might ask your friends for advice. I've seen posts on Facebook. A friend of mine was just in the Washington, D.C. area, and he posted, you know, does anyone have any advice for good restaurants within the Washington, D.C. area? And so we rely upon that, the word of mouth, in our own buying decisions, and certainly this is the season right now of buying. I was out yesterday doing some shopping, and so I was involved in reading some of those reviews, trying to find out what I wanted to buy or to purchase. And you think about your parents and the top 2 ways that they find out about your school, it's always word of mouth, number 1. In fact, every school that I've been into where I've conducted focus groups or done surveys, it's been about word of mouth. The parents will say that they found out about the school because of word of mouth. It's not because of some slick ad that you did or a billboard or a radio campaign or direct mail effort. It's really about that recommendation from a friend, someone that they know that they can trust, And then they'll go and look at your school on the web, maybe even search beyond that on social media, on Facebook, and find out more about your school. But it comes down to word of mouth. So word of mouth is that #1 marketing strategy that we need to focus in on for our enrollment success at our schools. And it revolves around trust, because you think about it, whose recommendation are you going to believe? It's the people you trust, your friends. Maybe it's the doctor that they use, or the car dealership that they have a relationship with and they bought multiple cars from that they're recommending to you. The same is true with your schools. People trust people, and it's going to be key to word of mouth along the way. And you think about this quote that's there on your screen. If your customers aren't going to talk about you, you're going to have to pay to put ads in newspapers and TV and all these different places. But when people trust you, they're going to put their words on the line for you. And that comes down to your parents. Your parents have to trust you, because, as this quote says, people trust people. People they know, people whose opinions and recommendations they seek out and have faith in. So that's the power of word of mouth. So as we think about developing our word of mouth marketing plan for our schools, we want to zero in on a framework for this that I'm going to highlight for you and give you some examples of what I see and how I see some other schools doing this. But let's stop and think about where your parents talk about your school. And you see on your screen lots of different circles and places where your parents are talking about your school. It could be just in the parking lot. I remember when I was head of school, and I would often hear some of the buzz that might be taking place in the parking lot after the parents dropped off their child to the school. And often I might need to go out there to just be able to interact with some of the parents, especially if some of that conversation might be headed in a different direction, or there might be rumors out there. You can hit it off by going to directly where the parents are at. But it also might be at other places. It's the face-to-face conversations. Parents are going to be talking to one another. Maybe it's by phone, or obviously at different places like Starbucks, and that's representative of any place where they might connect with another parent out there. Perhaps it's on the web. You think about our web world today, and you think about all these different sites, and parents now have the opportunity to talk about our schools, and there's so much power there that they didn't have years ago. I mean, they can go online and they can say exactly what they think about our schools on a site like Great Schools. I was working with one school in Texas, and I was reviewing all their reviews on Great Schools, and I saw their latest review, which was in all caps: "Do not send your child to this school." And that's the reality of someone putting a review out there and having the power of that free speech. And there's really nothing you can do about it except encourage other parents to go online and write some positive reviews about the school. But you look at the web today, and there's so many places where your parents and your constituency base can be talking about your school. But let's stop and think about how we would define word-of-mouth marketing, because I think that's a key to come up with the definition. And I always go to what I would say, or who I would say is the guru of word-of-mouth marketing, and that's Andy Sernovitz in his book, Word-of-Mouth Marketing. And he gives this definition: it's giving people a reason to talk about your stuff. In other words, giving people a reason to talk about your school. And that's about who you are. That's about the programs that you offer. That's about your satisfaction level that the parents have with the experience there. And then it's making it easier for that conversation to take place. And that's where we can jump in as people in the marketing and the enrollment areas and help to facilitate that conversation. In his book, Word-of-Mouth Marketing, it's one that I would encourage you to pick up. It's, I think, the best marketing book that's out there, and I highly recommend it, and you should definitely put that on your reading list over the break, because it will inspire you to think about how you can apply word-of-mouth marketing. And then also go to his website, wordofmouth.org, and you can find out lots of helpful information on this topic, because it's not only powerful for our schools, it's also powerful for businesses, and you see lots of examples of how businesses, nonprofits, are using word of mouth to try to generate business for their organization. And so a lot of helpful resources. It's actually a picture of myself and Andy Sernovitz. I went to his word of mouth crash course, which he held in May in Austin, Texas. And I was walking down the hallway and happened to run into him and said, "Hey, Andy, I'd love to take a picture with you." I don't know that he's the most photogenic guy. He's not smiling very much in this photo, but really a great guy. It was pretty cool when he saw my name tag. He said, "Oh, hey, you're Rick." And I said, "Yeah, how do you know me?" Because I've never met him before. And he said, "Well, you were the first one to actually blog about the word of mouth crash course, because I wrote about it to let the people of the school world know about the importance of this type of conference." So that was pretty cool that he recognized who I was and thanked me for spreading the word about his conference. So I would highly recommend that you might want to check out that conference when it comes on board again for this next year. I was just looking earlier today, and I don't think it's scheduled. But why word of mouth marketing? Well, it's going to build credibility. There's no better credibility than what your satisfied customers or your satisfied parents are going to have to say. It's certainly going to give you much better results than those traditional ads in the newspaper or on radio. If anything, those are just going to provide some kind of an awareness for the school. But the power is going to be in that word of mouth recommendation. It's going to make your brand be stronger and more trusted. It's going to help you reach your target audience. You think about your parents, for example, being able to reach anyone within your community, and they have access to those people. They know those people, and they can help spread the news about your school, and it's our #1 strategy. I just received the email newsletter from Andy Sernovitz's site on word of mouth marketing, and he gave 5 big word of mouth ideas. Be interesting or invisible, and that's the thing, is that you see a lot of schools who aren't necessarily interesting, and by that you can talk about the wonderful, great programs that you have going on, the innovations that are taking place in the classroom, or just the people that are part of your school. When you have to advertise, in a sense, that's the cost of being boring, and because you want to be in the power of telling the story of who you are, which is one thing we're going to focus on along the way. I like #4, marketing is what you do, not what you say. And by that he means marketing is often in our minds about putting that nice glossy ad together and saying all the right words and having the right tagline. But it's more about what you do in and out of the classroom, the way you relate with people, the way you treat people, the way you communicate and tell stories about real people connecting with your school. So what does that mean for your marketing strategy today? As you think about it, our focus needs to be on remarkable content and telling the story. Really, those two things go hand in hand together. The web is a world that's focused in on content, and as we'll see, content rules. So that's where we need to focus in on telling that story and generating the right content that's out there. And we can do that by building word of mouth in person and also online, because our goal is to create this movement of passion ambassadors and talkers. So just some questions to get us started. Are you giving your parents a reason to talk about your school? Because as Andy Sernovitz says, it's only going to work when you have a good school, or in this case, a good product. So we need to have a good school. That's when people like us and they trust us. Are we giving our parents any stuff that they can talk about? Now, hey, I've talked to lots of schools. We have lots of great things going on, but do we help share that story so that it becomes part of that natural conversation? Because our goal as marketers and people in enrollment and leaders of the school is to work within that conversation to let people know about the real stories that are taking place at our school. So how can we make it easier for that conversation to take place? Well, we can do things like have great customer service. And when the customer is the service is outstanding, that's when friends tell other people about you. And think about maybe an awesome teacher that's at your school. Parents are going to rave about that teacher and tell other people. And the same is true about just having a fantastic school that people can't resist showing to everyone. So in some ways, word of mouth, actually the base foundation of word of mouth is starting with a school that is achieving and has a high satisfaction rate and has a great program for their families. So is word-of-mouth marketing part of your strategy? And it's ironic, as even this John Jantz shares in his book, The Referral Engine, it's ironic that I find lots and lots of schools that know it's the #1 way that parents find out about the school, but they really don't have any type of strategy or plan in place to take advantage of it. And so that's our goal, is to take advantage of word-of-mouth marketing, to put a plan together. And I think we need a framework for how we can develop our plan. And so in his book, Word-of-Mouth Marketing, Andy Sernovitz talks about the 5 T's, which we're going to talk about this afternoon, and I'm going to give you some examples of each one of your talkers and who will tell their friends about you, topics, what are they going to talk about, the tools, how can you help that message travel, how can you take part in the conversation, and how can you track it. That all becomes part of your word-of-mouth marketing plan. So your talkers, find people who are going to talk about your school. So the reality is that anybody and everybody that's connected with your school or that's ever been connected with your school will have something to share about your school with their friends. And as we know, it could be good, it could be bad, especially you look at the parents, and if they've been satisfied, then it's going to come out of their own experience. Hopefully it's going to be positive. But if you have, certainly we all have them, unsatisfied parents, people that we can never please, people that leave our school and badmouth our schools, they're going to talk about their own experiences. We may even have employees that fall on either side. And the worst thing to have is an employee who works for you who is negative about the school. We just can't have that, because they're paid employees, and we need to make a decision to move them out of our school if that's the way it's going to be, if they're not able to change. And it's also going to be based upon someone else's experience. So it may be something that they heard 7 years ago that maybe is not quite true, but it's still the one story that they're passing on in the community. So the reality is that any of these people can be and will be talkers about the school, and they'll say anything that they want, whether it's based upon their own experience or based upon what someone else said along the way. This is a good book, the Face-to-Face book, that talks about the power of word of mouth, and it focuses in on those face-to-face conversations. So you think about, your talkers, where are they going to talk about your school? It's primarily going to happen offline. Now that doesn't throw out anything that we would do online, because I think all the things that we do on Facebook and the other social media sites and our website provides that fuel for the conversation, those stories that these people need to be able to share when they have the face-to-face conversations. But just the reality that we can't just focus online, we also have to focus face-to-face when we're trying to focus in on word-of-mouth marketing. Part of our goal is to recognize who are going to be the right talkers. You're going to want to look for someone who has passion for your school, their credibility among their peers, connections at the school, the opportunity to be involved. You want to find these people who are invested in your school. I think one of the great ways to look at your parent population is to try to use some of your new parents. Just think, you have these new parents who've just come into your school. They've just been through the process of selecting your school over the other schools in your community. They're sold in your school. They're excited, and nothing has gone wrong for them at this point. And so you can capitalize upon that new relationship because they're a new customer for your school, and they can actually help you because they have I would say, the freshest connections back into the community with someone from their school that they just came from, maybe their church, their neighborhood, another group. They're not so intertwined with the current school community yet, where they've lost all connections with the outside world per se. So you can really try to use them in this process to help spread the message into the community. Think about your parent ambassadors. A lot of schools I know have a parent ambassador program where the enrollment department will recruit a group of parents to help them in the enrollment and marketing effort. And I think this is a great approach. I have one school in Fort Worth, Texas, a school of about 225 students that just launched their first parent ambassador program. And their head of school and their admissions director identified 25 parents that they wanted to ask to be part of their parent ambassador program. They invited them to a appropriate for someone in Texas, a cookout, a barbecue in the head of school's home on a Friday night at the beginning of the school year to lay out their vision for the parent ambassador program and how they can help them. And it's been pretty cool to see 25 parent ambassadors that have been that have hit the ground running to do all these different types of things that are listed on the screen. They, for example, didn't have hardly any reviews online, and they needed to get some. So these parent ambassadors went at it and provided a lot of reviews online. So part of it is just motivating and using your current parents to help you in this process. The Out-of-Door Academy worked with them several years ago, and they included a card within their admissions packet of all their parent ambassadors with their contact information. It's just a great way to say to the prospective parents, here's a current parent that you could reach out to. You don't have to talk to the trained sales admissions person. You can talk to a real parent. But our goal is to try to get the talkers talking in this process, and parent ambassadors can help with that, not only externally but also internally. And you can even begin to expand it beyond the group of parent ambassadors, where you're looking at your parents as a whole and who are the talkers, and how can we help give them the stories and encouragement they need to take the school into the community. Lakeland Christian School in Lakeland, Florida, a school that's part of the Florida Council of Independent Schools that I had the opportunity to work with last year, took this concept of creating a talkers program and launched something this year. And I just wrote about this in my blog post last week. And I love this message that they posted on Facebook, Love Your School Out Loud, and it was kind of a teaser before school started. And then they developed and launched this LCS Talkers program, where at the back-to-school nights they gave out this flyer and they talked about this program. And really the simplicity of the program is that anybody can be a talker for the school. How much time is it going to take? Really, it's really up to you. And what can you do? You can go out into the community based upon your natural connections and share the message of the school. So all it did was heighten the awareness that parents are talkers and give them some tools to help take it back out into the community. But the bottom line is that a great school is going to create that word of mouth. When you have a great experience at your school, that's going to create the buzz that you need in the community. So in some cases with some schools, the first approach to focusing in on the marketing effort is to focus in on the overall quality that they're offering at the school. In a sense, it's going to be difficult to market a school that doesn't have the best quality, that has problems along those lines. And I liken it this way. Positive word of mouth is going to come about as a result of strong retention and parent satisfaction that's very strong. When those two are tied in together, you're going to have some positive word of mouth that's going to go out into the community, because that tells me that parents believe in your school, they're invested in your school, and they're willing to keep their kid enrolled. Topics, the second T, give people a reason to talk. What are they going to talk about? Well, the reality is they're going to talk about anything and everything, as we already mentioned, their own experiences, the experience of others, maybe what they've heard along the way. But the key is, I think, that for you as a leadership team to think about, what do we want our parents to talk about? So, as we sit around a table thinking about how we should market our schools, we need to think about what are some of the key aspects of who we are as a school that we want parents to really grab a hold of and actually talk about in the community. And then our marketing focus actually zeroes in on telling stories around those themes. So let's say one of your focal point is the outstanding college preparation that your school provides, and everything that goes along with that. Well, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to be able to talk about the stories and the real-life students who've gone on to these colleges and how they've excelled and how they look back at the foundation of your school. And that becomes a core part of our messaging throughout the entire year, so that we're really drilling in these stories into the minds of our parents throughout all of our communications channels. Let's say we're driving down the road and And I use the Texas example again, and you see this cattle ranch, and you notice this one cow sitting out front, the purple cow. You're going to do a double take, a triple take. You're going to pull over to the side of the road. You're probably going to snap some photos because you've never seen a purple cow. It's going to stand out. It's going to be totally unlike any of the other cows that are on that cattle farm. The same is true with our schools. We need to stand out. There's a lot of competition in a lot of schools. Sometimes we're saying all the same things. You know, it's about our small classrooms, it's about our quality teachers, it's about our faculty-student relationships, it's about our college preparation. You know, again, we can say all those things, but what makes the difference is relating those to real stories of real people. That's what can help us stand out and to be different, so that they can hear stories about your people. We don't want to be a brown cow. We want to be a purple cow. That's taken out of Seth Godin's book, The Purple Cow. And as part of this, on the whole second T, the topics, we need to produce great content. I talked about the web is a world of content and text. And so we need to think about what content can we offer. And I'm going to give you some recommendations a little bit later throughout this presentation about some of the things that we could do. Because as this quote says, when we help people, when we give good content, we're going to help them solve their problems. We're going to see growth. People are going to be attracted to us because of that. And again, this is a quote that reinforces that content is king. Content rules today. So that's what we need our marketing effort to be able to focus in on, is generating that content. I look at a marketing director, for example, as they need to be a storyteller, someone who can write and tell stories and get that online and get that in front of people. And you can talk about lots of different things along the way. Some of the obvious things that we've been highlighting, but it may be like at the bottom, educational topics or parenting topics along the way. Those things become important to parents. For example, at your school, I just gave this example to a school I was talking to earlier today. And why not publish a white paper or an e-book that talks about 7 tips of how to prepare your child for college, and you can relate it to what you're doing at your school, but you make that available online for your current parents as well as anybody who might find you in the web world, and that can become a powerful marketing tool. But we need to tell stories because we can see ourselves in that story. You know, you think about a parent coming to your school, and if they're hearing stories about other parents and other students that are enrolled at your school, if they can potentially see their child in that story and see the potential success or the impact that your school can have on their child, like the school is already having on all these other students, that's going to be very, very successful in terms of the marketing effort, because people can see themselves in a story. And this is, I think, one of my favorite quotes. Stories are part of who we are. After all, none of us are going to tell slogans about our grandfather or how our parents met or even how we were treated in a restaurant. And you think about all the money and time we invest in, maybe it's a tagline and trying to get that out everywhere, but it's going to be about the stories that people relate to, not necessarily a tagline along the way. So there's lots of different things that you can tell stories about. I liked one parent a year ago in a school I was working with in a focus group meeting. He said, you know, Rick, I think the best way to market this school here is to tell real stories and real stats and to mix those two together. So, you know, don't just tell me about our college acceptance rate. Tell me about the students and who they are and the successes that they've had and how the foundation of the school has prepared them for college. That's going to be, I think, a key effort. I was just at Santa Fe Christian Schools in Solano Beach, just north of San Diego, and I was working with their team there to provide an assessment and to put together a marketing enrollment plan for them. And one of the things that I saw is that they have this tagline, expanding minds, growing faith, preparing leaders. And my recommendation to them as part of this report that I gave to them is that they need to then zero in on telling stories about how they're expanding the minds of kids, how they're growing their faith, or how they're preparing leaders and preparing leaders of tomorrow. Again, it's one thing to be able to say that. It's another thing to be able to share real-life examples of how they're doing it. So, I think about like things they might share on Facebook. Those three key points in their tagline, key messages in their tagline, become really the focal point of sharing those stories on Facebook, on the web, on video, or wherever it might be. Now, tools. This is the third T. So we've talked about your talkers, we've talked about the topics, and now the tools, which is basically how we're going to help this message spread faster and further. And there's lots of different tools that we could potentially use to help us. And we see a snapshot list of some of these on the screen. And I'm going to talk about several of these during the next portion of our time together this afternoon. But these tools are basically what you're going to use to help you spread this word of mouth to the parents, to the community, and to anyone that you're trying to shape their perspective on the school. So let's start with people. As we saw earlier, the most effective way is going to be through that face-to-face conversation that we have with them. So as I look at it, leadership of the school has a great opportunity to tell stories and to spread that positive word of mouth. I think leaders at school, and by leaders I mean head of school, principals, marketing directors, anyone on that particular level needs to be out and about connecting with people. Because as you're connecting with people, that's going to help them build their trust in you. That's going to help you give them some stories and spread your enthusiasm for the school to them. And they're going to have conversations that they can share. So I'm a huge believer in group meetings, small group meetings, coffee chats, personal meetings. I mean, when I was head of school, I like to set up shop on some days in a Starbucks or a Panera and invite parents to come in and meet with me every hour. So I might be there for 3 hours and have different groups coming in where I'm talking to them about their perspectives of the school, and then I can share some of my thoughts and stories, and then they can it's kind of a feel-good interaction type of meeting that can take place. Sometimes we just need to get out of our offices and rub shoulders with people. In relationship to that and connecting with people, Andy Sernovitz talks about his lessons in love, and I have a blog post on this that tied into this and how it relates to school. We talked about actually the new love or the new parents as being very powerful, and you think about that new experience, that new relationship that these parents have with your school. They're excited, and remember back to maybe a relationship where you had maybe before marriage or when you got engaged and you were so excited and you told anybody and everybody about that new relationship. The same is true when someone chooses your school. The second point is what I wanted to emphasize at this point, is that love and money don't mix. In other words, you can't pay your parents to be word-of-mouth ambassadors in the community. It's not something that you're going to be able to give a tuition discount for. I've seen lots of schools try. They think that's going to be the key motivation to make word-of-mouth happen, is to give a tuition discount. But I think it actually cheapens word-of-mouth. It should never be something you have to pay for. It's money that you shouldn't have to spend because it should happen naturally out of their experience with the school. So don't try to mix love and money. Now you might want to give them a thank you gift if they referred someone to your school, and maybe give them a school branded sweatshirt or something like that. I mean, that's just a little way to say thank you, and it's nice because it gets something that they can wear and continue to be that ambassador for your school in the community. So the love and money, I don't think mix very well when we talk about word of mouth and when it comes to people. The faculty and staff, the point I want to make here is that it's everyone's responsibility within the school to be a word-of-mouth ambassador for the school. And certainly when it comes down to someone teaching in the classroom or coaching out on a soccer field, it's going to be about their performance, about the relationships that they build, the quality they offer, how they communicate the service they provide, but they also have an opportunity to tell stories and to reinforce um, the overall brand, the overall experience at the school. And so I think about the power of word of mouth. It's really getting everybody involved in sharing and spreading those stories. So your parents, I think, as we think about not only the people, and certainly the parents are part of that group of people, it's important that we give them some tools to share. It's another example from Lakeland Christian where they have their open house program. They call it the Welcome Wednesdays, and it's once a month on a Wednesday morning. It's kind of an informal open house. Come and visit. We'll take you on a tour. We'll assign you to a parent ambassador, take you around. But one of the things I like about what they've done is they have this card packet that you see on the screen where they give each of their current parents about 10 of these cards. They send it out to them at the beginning of the school year, and they say, hey, put this in your purse, in your wallet, in your pocket, wherever. When you come across a friend, you want to encourage them to go to one of our Welcome Wednesdays. Here's something you share with them. So it's a tool that you can put in parents' hands that they can use. Some other examples, Wheaton Christian and actually St. Stephen's have used a similar approach where they send home a postcard with a letter and just some information about things they could share and ways that they could help in the process of spreading the message. St. Stephen's case, they actually included a card magnet with that, which is a great giveaway to help that brand awareness in the community. The whole point is with your parents to use things like brochures or business cards, videos, maybe an email to share, card magnet, spiritware, any of those types of things can be tools for your parents to help spread and help facilitate that word of mouth in the community. We talked a little bit about giveaways and spiritware. This is my son and I, and as you saw in the beginning slide, we're Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And my son, actually both of my kids, I gave them a Christmas present this past year that they could go on a trip with me anywhere this calendar year, and in the United States. They just had to let me know where, and my youngest son said he wanted to go to Pittsburgh to see a Pittsburgh Steelers game. So I made a call to Brendan Schneider at Swickley Academy, who's become a good friend of mine. And by the way, if you're not reading his blog, you should be. It's schneiderb.com. And Brendan was able to hook us up with some Steelers tickets. And so we spent a weekend in Steeler Nation. And it was amazing to me. And that was our first experience in Pittsburgh. And it was amazing to me how many people wore Pittsburgh Steelers clothing. Everywhere you went. I couldn't believe everyone had on their colors, their paraphernalia, their shirts, jackets, whatever. And we certainly had to join them in the mix. We were part of Steeler Nation. But I was amazed at just the spirit in the community for their team. Now, they didn't do so well on Sunday, but hopefully they'll come back. They have, I think, 3 more games to play this year, so they're still fighting for that playoff spot. But what if it was like that for your school? I know none of our schools are the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it would be awesome to come into a community and see your parents, your alumni, the people connected with your school, just excited about your school and wearing it proudly. So anytime you can give something away, I think is a great thing to do. In fact, I'm going to give away, right now, I'm going to give away, I have 5 copies of Andy Sernovitz's book, Word of Mouth Marketing, and this is how I'm going to give it away because you can't actually see me or interact with me at this moment, but the first 5 people that would go to the Enrollment Catalyst Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Enrollment Catalyst, and say, you know, thanks, Rick, for the webinar, or whatever you want to say. I want to put words into your mouth, and I'd love to have a free copy of this book, and I'll send it to you to the first 5 people that actually post on my Facebook page. But that's an example of something you could do. Maybe you're writing a blog post, and you want to conclude your blog with a giveaway. The first 5 people to go to your school's Facebook page, and they can, you know, go to that and get whatever you're offering. Maybe it's a book of some author on parenting that you're referring to that might be helpful for them. And anything like that can generate some buzz and excitement, but certainly wearing spirit wear. Customer service and memorable moments. By living in Florida, we have access to lots of theme parks. We have annual passes at Disney. In fact, we're going over this weekend to see all the Christmas decorations and lights, so we're kind of looking forward to that. But you see myself and my two boys, and one thing I love about Disney is just the overall experience and their focus on customer service and providing that memorable moment for anyone who comes onto their into any of their worlds at Disney World. And one of the great books on customer service that I would encourage you to read is The Celebrity Experience by Donna Cutting. And I like it because she talks about treating your parents or your primary constituency as celebrities. She uses an educational example throughout her book, High Point University. In fact, one of the first things the new president did about 5 years ago is he hired a director of WOW on campus. Now, most of us don't have a director of WOW. I don't think I've run into any school that has a position like that. But he knew the power in creating that WOW-like experience, that overall customer experience for students and parents and people who are connected with the school. And they do everything from delivering birthday cards to Valentine's candies to other things that you can read throughout the book that makes that experience at High Point memorable and exceptional. They have reserved parking places for their guests. They have kiosks on their campus where they pass out hot chocolate during the winter months and bottled water during the warmer months. And it's a great way to be able to acknowledge people and to give things to them. Not to say you have to have a kiosk on your campus doing that every day, but maybe every now and then you offer something to create this memorable moment. And when you do that, that's going to help you or help spread this word of mouth into the community, because it's going to create buzz, and that's what you want to zero in on when it comes to service and creating those memorable moments. Campus visit can be a great way to treat that first parent coming into your school, their first impression for the school, and there's lots of things that you can do to make that a memorable experience. And I think it begins at that entrance. I mentioned Santa Fe Christian. When I arrived, and a beautiful campus, nice palm trees, walk up the steps, go into the main office. There's a sign that has an arrow on it with my name on it. Welcome to Santa Fe Christian, Rick Newberry. And that's not an expensive sign. It's not like what we saw at High Point, but it's just something that was easy to be able to use. You might want to have a friend day. Get your current students involved and inviting their friends out to visit campus for the day at your school. And that's a great way to get them involved in the process. Now, I think telling stories, as I mentioned earlier, is a great way to help spread word of mouth. And you can do that because you have a story to tell, and we have access to the web, and we can do lots of things. I was in Honolulu about 6 weeks or so ago, starting work with Hanalani Schools, and this is Mark Sugimoto. And he's the head of school, and he had just listened to another webinar that I had done for Ed Social Media, and he was trying to apply what I had talked about of creating a sustainable model of storytelling at his school. And I think this is a great conversation that every school marketing and leadership team needs to have, is how are we going to tell our stories? What ways are we going to be able to do that? Who's going to do it? How are we going to channel those stories to the right people? Like, we can tell alumni stories. This is some examples that I'm going to share. I'm going to click through these fairly quickly here. But Berkeley Prep has in their homepage Berkeley in the World Today. You can click on that. You see a map of where Berkeley is in the world. And you can click on one of those dots and you can read the story behind the student, the graduate, who's involved in the world. Cranbrook, one of the things I like about their site under their alumni section is that they have this section, Cranbrook Schools Alumni Shaping the World One Story at a Time. And so they tell stories of their alumni. Chapin, right off their homepage, they have a box there, My Chapin Story, and it focuses in on some student stories. Dana Hall, you can click for new stories about Dana Hall, and you can actually go to this page which has 4 unbound books that tell stories. I like the one, it's actually Dana Hall Loves to See a Girl Today, Be a Leader Tomorrow, and then in there they talk about 2 of their graduates and what they've been able to do. And I think it's a powerful way of not putting something in print, but putting something online. You can tell stories about your alumni through Throwback Thursday posts on your Facebook page. use an old yearbook photo and have people try to identify who's in the photo or what was going on. Telling stories about your students is key. I love what St. John's Prep did in their own words. They highlighted their graduates, their soon-to-be graduates, and they had a video vignette done for each one of them to share about their own experiences at St. John's Prep, as well as what their plans were for after graduation. Great way to get that message out there about how St. John's Prep prepares the students for success at the next level. Lawrence Academy, off the homepage of their website, has these 4 students, and they actually can slide them across, and you can read different aspects of their life at Lawrence Academy. Similar at this school where they're sharing stories, We Are the Titans, and you can click on it and you can find more about this student. You can see a video vignette. I think that's powerful, especially for students looking in and maybe seeing, can they find anyone like themselves. Commonwealth, similar type of approach where you see different students and you can click on a video vignette and you can hear more about the student, but also tell stories about your programs. So you think about like the homepage of your website. I like how the Boys Latin School of Maryland did this with 4 different things that they could spotlight at the bottom of their website and tell really 4 different stories of 4 different aspects of the school. Or maybe it's Seattle Country Day where they're talking about the unique things that happen in the classroom. And they have a photo there and you can click on it and you can find out what are these kids doing in 3rd grade with this architectural engineering thing that they're involved in. And it brings the classroom to life, and it's something that a prospective parent might be interested in. Similar approach at Innsworth and Oatsfield School. I pulled this one out because of they're highlighting traditions, and all of our schools have different traditions that we can highlight and focus on. We don't want to forget our faculty, and I like what Swickle Academy did with the Meet Our Teachers button. I'm not sure if it's still on the homepage right now, but you can certainly find it on the website. They have it on Pinterest as well. But you can click and you can find out a photo of the teachers, and you can find out more of who they are. And I see this on several websites where you can see who the people are, the teachers, the coaches who are providing this life-changing education at our schools. Same with the Putney School. They have different faculty and staff profiles. There's so much potential there of telling the stories of our people who are really the ones who are going to make a difference. Blogs are a great way to tell the story of your school and to help spread this content that's going to help generate word of mouth in the community. One of the main reasons to have a blog is going to help increase traffic to your website. So that in and of itself is a great reason to have a blog. You see the stat here on your screen by HubSpot. And there's some lessons certainly on blogging. The key is to be consistent and frequent. So to do it once a week, I would have it on the homepage of your website if you could. Make sure it's attached to your website domain. And you can actually read about this in my blog post on this particular topic. But I think blogging today is a key strategy, not just for having another place to put out content, but to be strategic with it. So you don't want to use it as a place to just sell your school, but you can use it as a place to generate content that might be helpful not only to your current families, but also to prospective families who may be searching on something like, can I be successful learning a second language? And I'll just show you some examples of some other blogs that are tied into the homepage of their website or on different pages. It's key to have that fresh content. This is one at St. Luke's School where you're not only seeing a blog, but you're also seeing a Twitter feed, another way to be able to deliver content. There's a different approach of photos that's being produced by Chuck's Corner at Proctor, and it's a great way to have that visual appeal. Maybe it's student blogs. Students can tell the story of their school and their experience and having that available. Facebook is certainly a key social media channel that you need to be involved in. A great book is Likeable Social Media. Certainly you want to be about sharing photos and captions, but there may be some other ideas. In fact, this will be my next blog post But maybe you have on there, the thing I like best about my school is, and then a blank, and then people will see if they'll fill in the blank. And you can have a lot of positive comments. You can tag people in photos and or in posts and have that show up on their Facebook page. The key is to capture the moment. And I was driving down the road with my kids back from Disney, and I noticed my car was, the odometer a couple years ago was going to change over to that a magic moment of 100,000 miles. Now that only happens once in a lifetime of a car. I captured that moment and showed my kids, and but it's true in our schools. We want to capture that moment. Here's an example at Lakeland Christian. This is election day, and as a faith-based school, they had kids take the initiative to go out to the flagpole and pray. It wasn't a faculty generated event. It was a student generated event. The middle school principal just happened to be walking by. Didn't really know this was going to be happening. Took a photo, sent it over to the marketing director. She put it out on Facebook, and you see the power of this one post. And it wasn't this great marketing idea that everyone sat around and thought about. Let's do this to try to manipulate and make this event happen so we can have this powerful marketing moment. No, it was capturing the moment, and you see the power in what can happen. If I look down at your Facebook page, I'd want to have photos and captions and stories that just tell me about the life of your school. And back to Lakeland again, one of the things I liked what they did this summer is they took a photo of their receptionist, and they said, we're so fortunate to have a wonderful and fun receptionist in our main office. Click like if you appreciate her. And they got a ton of likes. And that's a great way to get people actively involved. Admiral Farragut, they did a little contest. You see that posted on their timeline photo there. Canterbury School here in Florida, a school that I've worked with as well, they had their students and parents take vacation photos of Canterbury signs and T-shirts around the world, and those were posted on their Facebook page. Video, and we're going to be running out of time, so I'm going to cruise through a few of these things, but video is certainly a way to be able to share the story of your school, to have video vignettes. Take the time, if you haven't seen this, to go onto YouTube and put in Assumption Lip Dub fireworks video. And you'll see that they've had over 45,000 views on YouTube, which is powerful. You think about the viral marketing that has taken place just by that Lip Dub event from the school in Kentucky. You couldn't have planned that. You couldn't have put together a polished marketing video. Newsletters. The mistake I see schools make is they focus so much on events and activities that they don't tell the story of their school. And I like this format with Shorecrest. They're telling stories about what's happening on different aspects of the life of the school. Photo of the day is a way that you can share different photos on your website or on Facebook of things that are happening in the life of your school. Your social media mashup page is a way to pull all that together. This is a new one just launched by Hutchinson School, an all-girls school in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's a beautiful one. I love their website. You can take a look at that, and I love their social media mashup page and just pulling in all their content that's there. And these are just some other examples of some other social media mashup pages that you can look at. I mentioned reviews earlier. You've got to pay attention to reviews. And the main thing I would encourage you to do is to steer your talkers, your parent ambassadors, to these review sites, whether it's Google Plus or Great Schools, and to add some reviews, some positive ones about your school. And then in our last couple minutes, we just have about 4 slides to go, so we'll actually make it, is just a couple of final T's in his 5T framework. The 4th T is taking part. Join the conversation. So the key is to get out there and to be part of the conversation, whether it's face-to-face or small groups, large groups, on the web. Administrators, leaders of schools, you need to be taking part of blogs and on Facebook and to be part of that conversation. Certainly in the way you do service, you can join in that conversation by how you treat people. So I just encourage you to think about how are we strategically going to take part in the conversations that are taking place all around us. And it often involves getting out and meeting people wherever they're at, maybe taking that one family at a time approach, having coffee with people, meeting with them, sharing your vision, sharing stories, and encouraging them about their experiences at your school. And then fifth, tracking. You need to make sure that you're tuning in to what people are saying about you. So again, it's anecdotally in the parking lots or in Starbucks or wherever it may be. It's also seeing it on the web. Maybe you need to, from time to time, have someone come in and do some focus groups or to do some surveys. I mean, I'm amazed at what parents will tell me at a school that they may not tell the head of school, because they may fear repercussions on their child, in grades or in the class or whatever. But they're certainly willing to talk to me about the good and the bad in a particular school. And then at least providing an annual feedback mechanism so that parents can, through a survey, provide their input and their perspectives on the school. You can measure satisfaction from year to year to see how you're doing. And that's a key thing that I look for whenever I'm assessing a school in their enrollment and marketing effort along the way. So I know we've been through a lot, and we could probably spread out this webinar into several, and we could spend a lot of time on this, but hopefully this gives you a framework for how you might think about strategically of focusing in on the 5 T's of word-of-mouth marketing and adapting that to your schools so that you have a word-of-mouth marketing plan. So Karen, I'm going to turn it back over to you for, I know it's about 4 o'clock here, and I really didn't allow much time for questions. I'm certainly willing to stay after or longer if you want to do that, or can interact with people via email, or even can write about some of these questions that you might have in upcoming blog posts. So Karen, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Rick. That was an excellent presentation. I want to thank everybody for, if you'd like to hang in for a little bit afterwards, we'll have a little bit of a question and answer session here. And also keep in mind that Rick is willing to answer some questions via email if you really need to go. I know this is a really busy season. So I'll open up the question and answer right now, so feel free to send your questions in. The first question I have, Rick, here is, how do you encourage a specific message with your faculty and staff without them feeling like they're being scripted?
Yeah, certainly I don't want to tell them what to say. I think it comes down to your approach. So as you're, for example, 2 things that I would think about doing. As you're meeting with your faculty and staff, as a leader, you have an opportunity to share stories with them. And so they can see you demonstrating that example. And then secondly, I just lost my train of thought as to what the second recommendation was going to be. It'll come back to me. But certainly I would take that approach of sharing stories. Oh, okay, no, it came back to me. I would also, when you see it happening among your faculty and staff, encourage them. And you might even use that example. Like, for example, one thing that I would recommend to schools that you could keep the conversation internally going about the marketing and enrollment effort is maybe once a week or every 2 weeks you send out an email, call it the Marketing Minute. And it's an update from the marketing department about what is happening in the marketing area, what's happening with your strategies, and you could tell a story there, but you could also use that as a place to thank a faculty member for something that they did that was outstanding. You could encourage them, and not that you specifically say, now this is the model that everyone should follow. You're just thanking them, and people catch on and they see what's happening. So those are at least 2 thoughts that come to mind right now.
Excellent, thank you. I've had a number of people ask about the PowerPoint being made available. Yes, it will be made available as a PDF on admission.org on the webinar page once I post the recorded webinar. So this will all be available online. I'll be emailing a link to the page to everyone who has registered for the webinar. so you can go there and revisit it. Joseph Powers is asking, Rick, how helpful is a service like Google Analytics, and what is the best data that comes from such a source?
Well, I think with Google Analytics, you're looking at traffic into your website. And I'm interested in, the new traffic. I'm interested in how people found out about the school. In other words, what keywords did they use to get to your site? Like I was just talking to a school earlier today, and I was using an example of another school in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so one of their keywords that they've been focusing in on is Christian schools in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's I think the ninth most popular set of keywords for someone discovering their site. But it also would tell you some other things like the bounce rate. So how long are people actually staying on your website? So in other words, do you have content on there that would keep them there? So that's going to become important. And then what content are they looking at? So what pages are they going to? How long are they staying? All those become part of this conversation about assessing how we're doing on our website. Good question.
Okay, thanks.
And feel free to email me directly if you want to probe further on that.
Great. Heather Nielsen is asking, what are some other ways that you have parents get involved?
Other ways beyond the ones that I've mentioned, I think one of the best ways to actually is to sit down with your parents and to ask them, have them brainstorm, have them think about what you can do, because every community is unique and different. So you want to rely upon their perspectives, their ideas, and you want them to take ownership in it. If they can come up with an idea and run with it, you're going to be much better off than you trying to force something upon them. For example, some schools, it doesn't work to try to have parents have a coffee meeting in their home and invite their friends to. At another school in Fort Worth, Texas that I mentioned, a couple parents really liked that idea. So they went and focused in on that and invited some parents. They actually ended up not having it at their home, but actually having it at the school. So to me, it doesn't matter where it takes place, but it's their idea. They owned it. They were able to hit the ground running with it, and they made it happen. So, so that's at least one approach that I would take to try to generate some additional ideas of how you could get parents involved. I mean, there's so much you can do on the web and in social media and engaging in that conversation online with them. Hopefully that helps you with some additional thoughts. But again, feel free to reach out to me via email, and we can even probe further on that.
Okay, John Ford actually has an interesting question. Any thoughts on engaging parents in word of mouth in countries such as China?
Yeah, having not had any experience in China, I'd hate to speak out of turn. So I'd want to rely upon someone with that experience there. I'd probably want to talk to those parents specifically, and understand their culture and what they think could work best for them. Now, I certainly understand, it's a very much a web world, so the power in having testimonials, for example, on your website from Chinese families as you're trying to recruit them to your international program would be certainly a way to approach that. But I would want to rely upon them for how they think spreading that word of mouth in their own community and neighborhoods could actually work best.
Okay, we're out of questions.
Okay.
So I want to thank our audience for tuning in, and a special thank you to Rick for providing our attendees with such a helpful presentation. Just a reminder, I will send all registrants a link to the online webinar page where a recording and a PDF of this presentation will be made available. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
And thank you. Have a great rest of the year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.